Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Dennis Stockman, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Craig Krause. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths and floral tributes will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who had given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Dennis McAuliffe. Dennis McAuliffe was born on the 28th of December 1885 to Cornelius and Eliza McAuliffe. Born in Reddersdale in Victoria, McAuliffe attended the Kangaroo Flat State School. His father died when he was young, and his mother later remarried, after which he moved to Kalgoorlie, where he worked as a miner. McAuliffe enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in May 1915. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with the 28th Battalion the following month. After another period of training, Private McAuliffe was sent to Gallipoli, serving there for the last 4 months of the campaign. During the evacuation, he left with the machine gun section of his battalion and was later commended for his splendid example under trying conditions. After the evacuation, McAuliffe spent a period of time in Egypt training before being sent to France to fight on the Western Front. Shortly after his arrival, he was detached for duty to the 7th Brigade Trench Mortar Battery. This suited him, apparently, and in May 1916, he was permanently transferred to the trench mortars. The following month, he was promoted to corporal. McAuliffe's first major action came during the fighting around the French village of Pozières. In early August, he was responsible for keeping the Stokes mortars supplied with ammunition during an operation that captured strong German trench works to the northeast of the village. This was no mean feat, as their position was under extremely heavy shell fire, and McAuliffe conducted several carrying parties to and from the trench mortars' forward position. As it was almost solely through his efforts that the Stokes mortars had ammunition during the attack, he was later awarded the Military Medal. A bar was awarded to his medal early the following year. Corporal McAuliffe spent the bitterly cold winter of 1916 and 1917 in rotation in and out of the front line with the infantry. In the early hours of the 11th of March 1917, McAuliffe and his Stokes gun crew were in the front line near the French village of Bullecourt. The Germans shelled their position heavily, eventually striking close enough to blow in the gun position. Miraculously, none of the crew were wounded, and they quickly scrambled to move the gun to a safer position. Just after daylight, another German bombardment came over, and this time a high explosive shell burst in the trench close to McAuliffe, wounding him and 2 members of his crew. McAuliffe's commanding officer, Lieutenant Smith, later wrote, "I had him carried to a dressing station immediately, where a doctor attended to him. He was badly cut about the back and lost a lot of blood, but no one realised he was fatally injured. He was quite cheerful." McAuliffe was taken to a nearby casualty clearing station, where his condition quickly deteriorated. He died the following day. He was 32 years old. McAuliffe had given Smith his mother's address as he was being carried from the trench. Smith later wrote to her, "Your son was the best NCO we had in the battery, and as you know, he had won the Military Medal and a bar. We will all miss him very much, and we sympathise deeply with you in your loss." Corporal Dennis McAuliffe was buried in the Dernancourt Communal Cemetery Extension under the words, "So sadly missed, so deeply mourned." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Dennis McAuliffe, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and good evening.